Welcome to another episode of the Authors Lounge. We are glad that you joined us. No, I am not your usual host. I am actually Renata Rae, CEO of DreamSpire magazine, and we have a special guest today. I mean, if I reading her resume, I knew a lot about her, but oh my goodness, the things that she have accomplished. I'm going to read some of her resume, because we'd be here the whole interview if I told you everything about her. But let's start with this. She is a national best-selling author of more than 50 books. Okay? How many of you have even read 50 books? But not only that, she has written 50 books. Her book, Let the Church Say Amen, went to film with actress Regina King and was produced by T.D. Jakes. I'm not going to keep you waiting any longer. The name of the book, you're probably going to know who she is just from the name of the book. Let the Church Say Amen. So I'm going to say amen, and so be it. And let's bring in Reshonda Tate Billingley. Excited to have you here. I am a fan. I am definitely a fan of your work. And I knew you did a lot, but my goodness, in reading over your bio, I was like, wow. Okay, I want you to introduce yourself and let the audience know, how did this all get started? What was it like, that first book?
Yeah, so I have always had this active imagination, just love making up stories. And I've been doing it for a very long time. My mother used to get mad and say, you're lying. Those are lies. But it was just an imagination. And but along the way, I went to school for journalism because, my family is inside this box. And my mother would always say, you can't make money being a writer. That's because she didn't know any writers of color. So I went to school and majored in broadcast journalism. And when I graduated, I went to work for the National Enquirer, did not like being the paparazzi, and eventually began working in television news. But while I was doing that, I still had that passion to write books. So by day, I would stick to the facts with my news job. And by night, I'd explore the world of fiction.
The National Enquirer. Okay. Are they even still around? Oh, man.
They are still around and still making money.
That's awesome. So, I mean, it must have been different for you coming up to be a Black woman, even in that environment back then, to do that. So how was that breaking into that? I know you went to school and all that, but how was that?
Well, it's so crazy because I actually got that job because I was at a job fair with the National Association of Black Journalists, and they were there. And I used to read it just because I had this creative mind, and I would read it. I just liked it. And my friends was like, "They're on your favorite magazine. Why don't you go interview?" And I never had any intention on working for them. But I went over, I talked to them. They were impressed. They asked for my resume, and I was like, "Oh, okay." Didn't think anything of it. Then they called and said, we'd love to fly you down there, and based in West Palm Beach, Florida, for an interview. Wasn't interested, but hey, it was a free trip to Florida. And then I went and they offered me the job. And I said, well, I'm a real journalist. I can't come work for the National Enquirer. And they said, well, the starting salary is $120,000. So I'm like, when do you want me to start? And that's kind of how I started working for the Enquirer.
So did your mother after that say maybe there is some money in writing after all?
Yeah, she got to the point where she would say, she kept on, you can't make money writing a book. And then when the books took off, the writing took off, she was like, when are you going to buy your mama a car? So she came to see my vision.
That is awesome. So now you wrote your first book and that was good. But then here comes that second book. And wow. Okay, now you're just at a whole nother level. And what was that from your first book to your second book? Did you feel like, okay, I got this now? Or what was that feeling?
Oh, no. I mean, I'm on book 50 and I don't even feel like I got this now. One of the things, so I wrote My Brother's Keeper and I couldn't get a book deal. So I self-published because I kept getting rejected. And after I self-published, it caught the attention of an agent who ended up signing me. She got me a deal with Simon & Schuster. And that's how I got into the publishing game. And so then my second book came out, which was Let the Church Say Amen. And that's kind of the book that put me on the map. And from there, it just kind of took off. And so I'm one of those that I continue to always say, okay, is this book the best? If not, what can I do? And how do I make this book better? And I feel like that with every book.
So we have interviewed a lot of authors on this platform, and it's always curious for us to see what that writing process is. So how do the characters come to you and develop? How does that process go? I know a lot of writers are just going to want to know this from you.
So I would love to say that I go sit in a mountain in Maine and come up with these fantastic story ideas. But there is a joke in my family. Don't say anything around Reshonda unless you want it in a book, because I'm at the family reunion, laptop open, I'm taking notes. And so what I do is I really just seek the inspiration all around me. And that is someone will come in for their morning latte at Starbucks, where I work often, and they will be the inspiration for a serial killer in my novel. So I just get inspiration all around.
That's amazing. So, okay, don't come around. You might end up in the book.
You might end up in the book, definitely.
Well, that's an interesting process. So what was the process when you took that book from a book and then all of a sudden now they wanted to make it a movie?
Well, I got my movie deal by being nice. I'd love to say that, I know that sounds like a cliche, but that really is what happened. I was at a book signing and this young lady came up to me. She had on a McDonald's uniform. She said, I'd love to buy a book, but you see where I work. I don't get paid till next week. So I bought a copy of my book for her. I signed it. We had a great conversation and she was so impressed. She gave the book to her sister who worked for an airport bookstore in Phoenix. And one day Juanita Bynum was coming through that bookstore and asked for a recommendation. And the woman said, well, you've got to read this book by Reshonda Tate Billingley, because she was so nice to my sister. And Juanita read it, loved it, and then got in touch with me and asked for my permission to take it to Hollywood. And that's how I got on their radar.
I love it. I love it. And a lot of times we underestimate the power of just being nice. Mm-hmm. And that's good. And to give.
Right.
Sometimes a lot of authors feel like, well, why am I giving this book away, or why am I doing this? But you never know what door is going to open up by being nice and being present and caring. Right. So that's a blessing. I can't wait till people hear this, because I'm gonna say I'm gonna have to put this clip. Okay, you hear that? It's nice. My mom used to always say, you know what? It's nice to be nice.
Right.
And it's a simple saying, but it really is nice to be nice. Well, gosh,
you do something without expecting anything in return. For me, that's when your biggest blessings come.
All the time. I'm a witness. Definitely, you give away a lot, but it's nothing for what you get in return, and right. from a good place. And mm-hmm. that's important to know, because sometimes in the world we're living in, we forget that because we mm-hmm. have so much coming at us. But absolutely. Well, this is a perfect place to take a little pause, and we're going to come back and talk a little bit more about your past, but we want to talk about something that you're doing now. And I want to talk all about Brown Girls Publishing. I really want to know all about that. Welcome to the Authors Lounge, a comfortable space for cozy conversation with authors. You may meet your new favorite author or catch up with a best-selling one. Hosted by Cheryl Mays, brought to you by DreamSpire Publications. Stop on by ZondraTV.com or catch us on Roku, Apple TV, or Amazon Fire. I look forward to seeing you there.
Okay.
Welcome back to the Authors Lounge. We have been chopping it up with the phenomenal, prolific, amazing author, Reshonda Tate Billingley. And she's been giving us some key insights from being in the right place at the right time to being nice and writing over 50 books. I mean, that's a catalog. That's when you're gone. So we're glad to have you here. I'm going to go back and then we're going to talk about Brown Girls Publishing. But when do you think you're going to say, okay, I'm not writing anymore? How many more books do you think you have in you at this point?
I never, I never say never. There are times when I say, okay, I'm just tired. But as long as people continue to read, I'll continue to write.
Well, that's good. So you heard that. We might have another. We'll have an interview in a couple of years and be like, and your 100th book
I
anniversary.
know, right?
That's awesome. I wrote 2 books and I'm like, okay, I think I'm going to write my 3. I can't even imagine writing 50. That's amazing. I do own a couple of your books. Yes, I do.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. So you're here in Texas?
I am. I'm in Houston.
Okay.
And I really do. Houston is home. I kind of have lived all over the place, but Houston is home. That's where my roots are.
Okay. I just moved to Dallas, so I'm getting used to it. Haven't quite made it down to Houston, but I definitely want to go to Houston. So tell us all about Brown Girls Publishing. Where did that come from? What is your mission with Brown Girls Publishing?
So it's Brown Girls Books, and we really we're a boutique publisher, and we started, myself and my business partner Victoria Christopher Murray started this company to give new and aspiring authors as well as veteran authors a voice. The industry had changed over the years, and more writers were not able to break into the field. And so we really did just want to start this company for that reason. And we have about 40 authors on our roster. And we just enjoy introducing new work. We believe in quality, so we bring quality products to the masses.
And how would someone become a part of Brown Girls Books?
Well, right now we aren't taking new submissions just because we were just overwhelmed with the volume of submissions. But if they follow our mailing list, and when we open it back up, they're more than welcome to submit. We don't require agents. So we deal with authors directly because it's a partnership with us and our authors.
Well, that's good. That sounds like a passionate. And you mentioned that the industry has changed. What are some of the things, we're going to look at this from both sides. What are some of the things you say, wow, this is great? And then some of the things you say, well, maybe not so much.
One of the great things is with the changing industry is that everybody can write a book. And one of the bad things is that everybody can write a book. And that's simply because, you really do have to respect the craft of writing. I am an eternal student, I actually have 53 books. And even with those books under my belt, I'm continuously trying to learn. The industry is ever changing. And you have so many people that simply say, okay, I wrote this one book. I'm an expert. I don't need to learn anymore. I don't need to study the craft. And that's disheartening. Also disheartening for me are those writers who say, oh, I don't read. And how can you be a writer who doesn't read? Even those that say, well, this is creeping back into I don't want anyone else's voice to creep into my voice. To me, that's a cop-out. Your voice is your voice. And if you want others to respect your writing and support your writing, you have to do the same.
Absolutely. You said a lot in that. And I think because we deal with a lot of authors and what we do on our platform, it is the craft. It is a craft, and it is something that you have to learn and you have to put some energy in. Mm-hmm. And like you said, the good thing is everybody can write, and the bad thing is everybody can write. We are on Clubhouse and we do a book. We do in our book club we have. And one of the topics that we do is, so you wrote the book, you gave birth to the book, now you got to raise it. So can you talk a little bit about the business of authorship?
Yeah, it's no longer if you write it, they will come. You can't write a book and just sit back and say, okay, now let me wait for the sales to just go through the roof. Writing the book is only half the journey. You have to get out there then and push and pound the pavement, especially now when people have so many other things to compete with, i.e. television, social media. So you have to respect the craft of writing so that you give them something worth reading. And then you have to get out there and do marketing.
that's the key word is marketing. And I think just to get people to invest back into themselves, because just like we said in our room, once you gave birth, it's not like your job is just beginning. And
Right.
I'm glad to hear that from a veteran author like you. So with self-publishing, and it's interesting that you said you self-published your book and then you got picked up by a major publishing house. And I know even with that, though, that whole dynamic has changed. So what would your advice be to someone, a young author, if they can only get one, we got you here, and if they can only get one solid piece of advice from you, what would that advice be?
Yeah, don't let anyone but you determine your destiny. So, for example, you and God. I'm a Christian, so for me, it's God. And what I do is I have all kind of no's thrown at me. And so for me, no's are just obstacles that have to be overcome. If I were to stop every time a boulder was placed in my path, I would never get anywhere. And so I tell writers all the time, aspiring writers, that if one door closes, you just find another way in. This industry is shifting. It is very hard to get a book deal now. So I wouldn't send out 3 query letters and then don't hear anything and say, oh, well, I must not be a good writer. I would send out 300 and then 3,000 and just continue to go sending out because, you have to put in the work to realize your dream. Everyone else may not be on board, but you have to keep that train going until they jump on.
Now, what would you say the self-publishing? Because there's so many different avenues of self-publishing out there. When I wrote my first book 12 years ago, it was a poetry book, and Lulu was the one. It was Lulu and somebody else, but I actually read the fine print, and my book was very small. I said, I'm not giving up my distribution rights. And when I read that, I was like, no, I'm going to have a sampling of my poems out there. I don't even push that book because it's so small. But how would you say people navigate this? Are you a proponent of self-publishing through I'm not going to say.
I am no. So I am a proponent of self-publishing. Self-publishing means you do everything yourself. When you use a company like Lulu, that is really called, they call it vanity press, or using an independent publishing company. Because self-publishing means you do everything yourself. You find a printer, you are responsible for collecting the money. A lot of those type companies prey on people that just want to be writers, and you're paying an exorbitant amount of money. You can go to Amazon, KDP, and get your books printed for nothing. Or get your book published for nothing. So I'm an advocate of self-publishing that way, simply because there are so many publishers that I know, editors, who have mounds of workshops mounds of manuscripts in their offices. They don't have time to get around to it. So somebody is sitting at home waiting on that editor to get back with them. And the editor just hasn't had time to read it. My editor used to have a stack of manuscripts from the floor to the ceiling, and She just could never get around to it. And meanwhile, somebody's sitting at home going, well, they must not have liked it, so let me go get a job at Walmart. And they're crushing their dreams, and she hadn't even read it. So yes, publish it yourself and get out there and spread the word about it.
Absolutely. That is the thing to do in vanity press. We need to be aware. And now it seems like we're in a situation, I'm not going to call it a situation, but we're living where everybody is a publisher these days. And everybody is an editor. And one of the things, how important would you estimate it is to have some good editors on your book? It
is absolutely important. And a good editor costs you money. But here's the thing, if you can't afford an editor now, then you can't afford to publish yet. It's okay. It's okay to wait until you can get money to get your book edited properly, and not edited by, Big Mama or your cousin Pookie who got an A in English. You need a bona fide book editor. Readers have so much to choose from. They're only going to give you one shot. And so if you put out a product that is less than stellar, that is riddled with errors, you have blown your one shot. I'm an editor, and what happens a lot of times is I will get projects, and I am a little on the high end, and people will come to me and say, "Oh, you're too high," and they'll go to someone else, and then they'll come back to me to clean up the mess that the other person did because they tried to go the cheap route, and you end up getting what you pay for. Because it's a shame for you to write such a great book, pour your heart and soul into a book, and then a reader tosses it because it's riddled with errors.
I'm glad you said that. And a lot of times, Big Mom and them may be proofreaders.
Yes.
And a lot of people need to know the difference between a proofreader and an editor.
Absolutely.
I know on my book, I had two editors and from two different perspectives. And it was just that interesting process of having two editors to see even within that, their different perspective in the way, that they work differently. Probably if you read my book closely, A Trained Eye Like You could probably figure out when one came and the other one took over the project. But I think I really want people to know that editing is important, and you get what you pay for.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And, if you got to save, I think that's the most, to me, outside of putting your words down on paper, I think editing is one of the most important things. We're going to pause here. We're going to have a break, and then we're going to have a couple of fun questions, and then we're going to be done. I mean,
All right.
already. Well, thank you. I know you've been enjoying this rich interview with Reshonda Tate Billingley. She's talked about everything from her process of coming into this industry and to editing, to her own company, the authors, and we're looking forward to her next 100 books. Oh, did I say, okay, next 50 to make 100 books. So we're back here, and we're going to wrap this interview up in a minute, but it's a couple of questions we always ask everybody. Now, here's one. Welcome to the Authors Lounge, a comfortable space for cozy conversation with authors. You may meet your new favorite author or catch up with a best-selling one. Hosted by Cheryl Mays, brought to you by DreamSpire Publications. Stop on by ZondraTV.com or catch us on Roku, Apple TV, or Amazon Fire. I look forward to seeing you there. You have been in this business for a long time, and you are an avid reader, and you have met a lot of writers. So if there was any one particular writer that you haven't met that you could sit down and talk to, who would that be, and what would you ask them?
So I am a big fan of Maya Angelou, who actually sparked my love of reading. I know why the cage bird sings. And so I would love to just have the opportunity to sit at her feet and soak up the knowledge. I'm just a huge fan of her. And I would love that just for so many reasons, just because she's talented, and then because she was the inspiration for what I do.
Wow. Well, you chose my favorite for sure. And I related to her. I remember, gosh, I was a very little girl when I know why the cage bird came out. And I remember I was at my grandmother's house, and my grandma was like, "What is this you're watching?" I'm like, I had already read the book, and I definitely loved it. I had a chance to be in the same room with her a couple of times, and one was right after.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. I had a chance to be in the room with her a couple of times, and one was after the earthquake. I'm originally from California, and I was pregnant with my son, and we were in a gym, and I was 7 months pregnant, sitting on those hard bleachers, but I didn't care because I was listening to Maya Angelou. And then the second time was 18 years old, 18 years later in Atlanta, and my son was with me. And so I felt like that was really a full circle moment for him to be in the womb. And then 18 years later, when I heard her again, he was in the audience. So she was definitely one. And plus, she lived in Tulare, and that's where my grandparents were from. And so I spent a lot of time in Tulare. In fact, she was on Q Street, P Street. That was a bad street. Don't tell nobody, but we were on Q Street. So I definitely always related to her with that. So if there was, I know you have a new project coming out. Can you give us just like a little hint of that project and what it is? Let our audience get a sneak peek of it.
Yes, it is my book called Miss Pearlie's Girls. It comes out in February, and it will be my last book for a minute. I'm so excited about it. It is about how secrets and lies destroy a family. It's these four sisters and the secrets and lies that have torn this family apart. And as their mother is dying, she's trying to bring them back together. And it's just how the family dynamic deals with all of that. So I really love this book. I loved writing this book. I enjoyed it. I'm a big advocate of healing hurts in families. And so this deals a lot with that. And it comes out in February of next year.
So I love that. So where is the time period? Where is it set? Is it set in modern times?
It is set in modern time, but it's set the nucleus of it takes place in Arkansas. That's where they're from, and it's how they all just fan out all over the world, trying to escape their roots.
Wow! So February. That's going to be a hard. I know time moves fast, but I'm definitely going to look out for it, and we're definitely going to shout it out when it comes. I have two sisters, so it's three of us, and I know the ups and downs of sisterhood. So it sounds like extremely interested, and like I said, I'm already a fan of your books, and I know your character developed. So I can't wait to meet Miss Pearlie's Girls and see what they have to say. I'm sure I'm going to find. I love a book. To me, a book is best when I can see myself in one of the characters, or I can relate, or if it's not necessarily myself, I can say, I know that character. Right. And if you guys haven't, audience, if you haven't read any of her, 50 books. Now you should have read something. But if you haven't, go and get a book, okay? Because you're going to be hooked. Once you read a book, just pick anyone and see the character development, and you'll definitely see yourself or your uncle or your auntie and them in between those pages, for sure. I mean, I love that you write stories that are relatable and stories that have lessons in them and that are well crafted. And it's an honor definitely to have you with us today. I can check that off my list of people that I want to speak to. I've had a chance to speak to a lot of great people, and I definitely count you among them. And thank you for sharing some time with us. Is there anything else you want the audience to know before we get out of here?
No, I just appreciate I am where I am because of the support of readers. And so I will always be appreciative. And I really do count my blessings. So I just want the readers to know that they are the reason that so many of us are able to do what we love.
Well, that's good. So thank you for joining us today on the Author's Lounge. And I'm going to close up the store, but don't go anywhere. We had a awesome time with Reshonda Tate Billingley, a prolific writer. She has a new project coming up. Check out and support not only her, but the authors on Brown Girl Books. You can look it up. We'll have all the information where you can reach out, where you can follow her, where you can go to the website, where you can get a book and look out for what's coming in February. Thanks so much for joining us here on the Author's Lounge, and you have an awesome day. Keep reading.